Alright, so what's up? I did my problem on the molecular Lewis structure. I'm going to basically describe how to draw the structure and the general summary of the steps. The overview, the important parts are that the valence electron amount has to be correct, obviously. You find the valence electrons in the periodic table. They're the ones with the A next to them. For example, 1A, 2A, right there at the very top, 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A, 7A, 8A. You're not going to be using the middle ones. Don't worry about those. Don't worry about those yet. We're too dumb for those, because we're not in AP. But anyways, the structure has to be right. I'll go into more detail about that. And then add the electrons of both chemicals given in the equation, subtract by the number of shared electrons, the lines, and then subtract by the number of electrons in the outside chemicals. And I'll obviously describe that further. And the main condensed steps are to count the valence electrons, top of the periodic table, like I showed you earlier, the ones with the A's next to them, and to subtract and add all the electrons to make sure you have no extra. If you have extra, those will go on the middle element, and I'll explain that more. Begin to draw the structure, and make sure the middle element is an octet, which means has all 8 shared electrons. If not, more lines will need to be added, and I'll just explain that even more. I had a problem ready. CC carbon and then 4 chlorines. I chose this one. It's a lot easier than other ones. Alright, so what you want to start off by doing is that you want to do the calculations first. You start off by the 4 electrons. I got the 4 electrons from the carbon on the periodic table right there. 4A, 4 electrons, goes at the very top. And then the 7 times 4 comes from the valence electrons of chlorine, right here. Chlorine, 7A, 7 electrons, but there's 4 chlorines, so you need to multiply that by 4. If it was 5 chlorines, you multiply by 5. If it was 2 chlorines, you multiply by 2, and so on and so forth. 28 electrons in total. 7 times 4 is 28. And then you add these together to get the total amount of electrons that will go into this equation right here. 32 electrons. Once you get up to this point, you can either start drawing the structure, or you can just continue with the calculations. I prefer to do the calculations. It's probably better to do this because this helps you visualize, how to do these more. It helps you out. It gives you something to do it off of, basically, from this one. These 8 electrons come from these lines right here. So what these lines are is, like I said earlier in the steps, these are shared electrons between the chlorine and the carbon. There's 4 of them. We'll pretend basically this line has 2 electrons on both sides of it, which completes 8 electrons here. And you need 8 electrons for each of these elements. I know these electrons, the dots, there's only 6 of them, but this completes it, which makes it 8 for all of these. That's where this 8 comes from, and you subtract it from 32 electrons, the total, and you end up with 24 electrons. You go on to subtract another 24 electrons, which comes from the 6 electrons of the chlorines that are all around this. So these are the outside electrons, like I stated earlier. Since there's 4 chlorines and 6 electrons on each chlorine, you multiply those by 4, you get 24, and then you subtract it to get 0 electrons. Since I don't have an odd number, I know I did it right. If it was an odd number, you probably have to redo the calculations. If it's an even number, let's just say if it was 2 electrons or something, you would take the electrons and you'd put them on the chlorine or the carbon in the middle, and it always goes in the middle. The first letter, the first chemical goes in the middle, and then the second chemical goes on the outside. An octet, make sure you have an octet completed, which means that the carbon shares 4 of these lines and 8 total. If it doesn't, you'll need to draw an extra one to share more electrons, which would end up taking some of these out. And then these 4 elements, these are some of the elements that don't need 8 electrons. They need less than that. And that'll be it. Yeah. If y'all don't have any questions, don't ask me. I'm only doing this for the points. Ask Mr. Drake. And yeah.